No, I'm really pleased to offer up Geoff Parker tonight. Geoff is an architect, a design architect that was hired by Benham, which is a Haskell company out of Oklahoma City. Probably, I guess it was about 8 months ago, something like that, Geoff.
Yeah,
And I
June.
immediately recruited him because I began seeing his work posted online through the architectural sketchers through Instagram, and I said, hey, we need to get together and share some ink. And I invited him to Jacksonville about a month or so ago, and we did a dual sketch session with Haskell sketchers one day, and it was a rousing success. And offered the opportunity to have him speak to us tonight, and really appreciative of that. But Geoff is not only an avid sketcher. I mean, he's a wonderful design thinker, creative thinker as an architect. We've got him on a number of design teams, which has been a great boost to our design capabilities in-house. He's an avid fountain pen collector. So I know we have some kindred spirits amongst us tonight. Patrick and Merrick, to say a few, and Wes, really appreciate you guys joining us. And I hope he shares a little bit of that. And certainly his diversity of subject matter is always such a joy to see. He's got a great technique. He's got one particular type, kind of an out of the ordinary type building subject that I think all of us will be sketching tonight. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about why he gravitated to that level of structure. But it's always an interesting subject to sketch, and we're pleased to have him. So anyway, Geoff, without any more waste of time, welcome, happy Valentine's Day to everybody. My wife's in the other room, but there's no other place I'd rather be than right here, sketching with all of you. Because I love all you guys. So Geoff, thank you for being here, man, and we look forward to the evening.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the kind. Chris is too kind. But thank you for that, and I do appreciate it being the invitation. I always I love getting any chance I can to talk about sketching and drawing and graphic visual acuity, pens. I kind of geek out on this stuff. So anytime I get a chance to do it, I hardly ever say no unless I just can't. I gotta apologize about not being here last month. I was sick and it kind of hit me all out of the blue. So apologize about that, but I appreciate being asked to come back. And so it's an honor to be here. I've seen a lot of the USK Jacksonville work online. You guys have an awesome group, an active group, and some really talented folks, some really great product. And yeah, you seem like your group is again really active. Just listening to the activities she rattled off there is you got some great stuff coming up. So again, kindred spirits. It's always good to kind of get with people that are fired up and passionate about the same thing you are. Kind of helps keep the excitement going, recharge the batteries, all that good stuff.
Add to this.
So a little bit about me. I'm an architect here in Oklahoma City. I'm an Okie, what we call Okies. I was born here. I've lived here my whole life, and I love Oklahoma. I've lived in Oklahoma City my whole life. I love Oklahoma City. It's a great town. It's grown a lot in the last 20 or 25 years, but it's still kind of it's a big city. I mean, there's over 1 million people. They've got everything, that most big cities have, except the kind of the big city feel. It still kind of feels like a small town a little bit. It's still kind of got a very kind of down to earth feel about it. People here are pretty laid back. And I love Oklahoma City. I love seeing the growth that's gone through and the changes that's gone through in my lifetime. Things really shifted in 1995 when the Murrah building bombing happened. And that was right when I was in college. And so, I was already in architecture school and seeing all the stuff that came out of that. And it's pretty interesting to live here during that time and then to see where it's at now. So, yeah, I've also taught at OU at the University of Oklahoma as an adjunct for, I think I did about 8 or 9 years off and on, and taught first and second year studio. So I was always involved in the initial parts of the program where we were really focused heavy on graphics and drawing and visual acuity and skill building and learning how to think like a designer, and getting the great questions that students always ask, like, well, why? Um, it was very, very fun to get to do that and practice for a while. And so, yeah, so I've been sketching ever since I was in college. My dad is an architect, so I always kind of knew I wanted to be an architect, but I always drew as a kid, but I never really drew architectural stuff. I wanted to be a cartoonist. I used to get Mad magazines and I'd copy Mad magazines, copy the drawings in Mad magazines, like Mort Drucker and Jack Davis and Sergio Aragonés and those guys. And as I got into high school, and then when I was getting ready to graduate, go to college, I realized I probably couldn't really, I mean, probably couldn't realistically make a career as a cartoonist. And so, kind of just was like, well, I guess, I always wanted to be an architect. I guess I better go to architectural school so I can eat and not starve to death, or not have to move all over the country chasing a cartoonist job. Um, I've been here my whole life, and when I started, like I said, when I started in college, I had a professor early on that got us. He made us keep a sketchbook, and we had to sketch every day in our sketchbook. He made us buy a Lamy Safari fountain pen, and I fell in love with the pens, and I fell in love with the act of sketching and the process of sketching. And I've just been doing it ever since, daily. And I, I love doing it. I do it when I travel. I do it at work. I do it at lunchtime. It's kind of my lunch break relaxation. It's very relaxing. I love the computer. I love the technology, but there's nothing like sitting down with a pen and paper, analog, and slowing down and drawing, looking, really seeing, really studying, and then the editing process that takes place as you draw, and the mental gymnastics of taking a three-dimensional object and turning it into a two-dimensional thing on paper, and how that works, and what you put in, what you leave out, how you interpret it, how your mood affects, and how time affects the drawing, and all those things. Just um, they still fascinate me, and they still intrigue me. And the act of drawing when you travel is something that I is it's a treasure. It's a treasure, because I can look back. I have sketchbooks. I have hundreds of sketchbooks, and I can go back and look at something I drew, 15, 20 years ago, flip through a page of something when I was, sitting on the Riverwalk in San Antonio, and go to that sketch, and I remember exactly where I was at, the time of day, what the weather was like, who I was with, what it sounded like. I mean, it connects that part of my life and my memory forever. Like, not like a photograph can. I mean, you can go back and look at photographs after a trip, and you kind of, they resonate a little bit, and they're awesome, and they capture things, but there's just nothing like the sketch. I mean, the sketch it imprints it in your memory forever. There's something magical that happens there. And I love going back sometimes and flipping through them and just seeing how different my drawings are, and how my style has evolved, and technique, and um, attention to detail, things like that. It's a lot of fun. So that's kind of my little, like, quick manifesto. Again, I could talk about drawing all night, but I know we're actually going to draw. But um, Chris did ask me if I had some stuff I could show. So I've grabbed some of my old sketch books here, and I don't know. I hope I can do this without hitting the camera. Um, you know what? Hang on just a second. I'm going to try to raise this up. It needs to go up higher. Oh, it froze. So these are some of my, and I apologize, the scale is a little off, but these are some of my sketches here from this sketchbook. And as Chris mentioned, I love, probably 20 years ago or so, I got fascinated with these industrial and agricultural type buildings that are all over the place here in this part of the country. Um, and started drawing these things, and they have this utilitarian beauty. They're so, I mean, they're not a lot of people would look at them and they think, well, that's ugly, this big grain elevator feed and seed thing. It's like, but to me, I mean, I just look at them and like the honesty. There's the forms. It's all about function and efficiency and form, and there's no fluff, there's no icing, there's no decoration, but they have this incredible composition and massing and scale and delicate filigree, and I just I find them fascinating. And so you know I've done a couple of little lectures on these. I call it unusual beauty. It's again, it's a lot of things where people would think, well, those are ugly. Those are just, why would you look at a grain elevator and think it's cool? And I'm like, well, just really look at it again. It's like really stop and study it and look at what's there and the forms and the shadows and the negative space and all these kind of architectural things that um, so yeah, so there's some of that. I've got a couple of others. And of course, I love sketching just about anything architectural, buildings, churches, um, old buildings, historical buildings. Um, you know, I don't do a lot of stuff in pencil, but every now and then I get my pencil out and do stuff in pencil. But um, yeah, there's a building in Oklahoma City that they just tore down, unfortunately. Chris has heard me talk about that. And these are, if you're familiar with the Moleskin Japanese accordion albums, so these are sketched on those on this sketchbook, and this is some of the silos and elevators and facilities, and then they have text here that's it's kind of like a poem story that I wrote that goes with it, talking about um, the what it is I see in these, and I've got that posted somewhere online if you guys want to actually listen to my narration of it. But I love this format and just this kind of idea, this continuous page or continuous sketch. And then this is another one where I did the same thing, obviously without the text, but it's all kind of like it's multiple facilities, but I kind of bled them all together into one, basically into one continuous sketch. Oh, sorry. This is hard to do. Camera. And if you guys have anybody has questions or anything as I'm going through this, please just shout out. This is not formal, and I'll do the best I can to answer it. But there's that. And let's see, where's a couple of others? I've got more kind of architecty. This is actually from a sketchbook from when I did my master's, my graduate work. So this was an urban study. I can't remember the name of the class. It was an urban study seminar. So I did these studies of buildings in downtown Oklahoma City. Just talking about and then studying all the urban things, scale, proportion, open space, street frontage, entry sequence, how the buildings meet the ground, those kind of urban design things. So this was a little more of a kind of an academic exercise. But this sketchbook was my class. Like I didn't write any papers. I didn't do any actual formal presentations. I just turned in my sketchbook here with all of I went kind of block by block of a little section of downtown, the central section of downtown Oklahoma City. And so, so these are kind of not really intended to be presentation drawings, more just like this graphic recording and thinking type of drawings. So there's that. And I do.
So Geoff, I guess you passed the class then, right?
I did. I squeaked by. D is for diploma.
Nice.
Yeah, I did all right. Yeah. And these are some stuff from my current sketchbook. And if you guys follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you see I post a lot of these. And these are some kind of fantasy drawings that I do where I just have these, architect. I have all these ideas in my head, all these forms and shadows and spaces and layers, and it's like these kind of just like fall out of my head, and so I draw them and uh, explore them and kind of in a kind of cathartic way. I like incorporating text in my sketches. This is from a trip recently to Mexico where we saw some of the Mayan ruins. And I did a few sketches. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Italo Calvino book, Invisible Cities. It's a great book, easy read, fun. And so wrote the text of the city and then did my interpretation of a drawing of what that city would look like. So here's a couple of these spreads, and this one's kind of, you can see the double page spread. It's a lot of fun. And here's another one with the text below. And it's very stylized. It's a little tough to read. I can read it, but I've had people comment that were like, I can't read it. And like, well, that's not really the point. It's kind of, it's just for me. So you can kind of see some of these, there's a lot of the same theme and variation in some of these ideas of my fantasy sketches. Oh, these are from our last, Chris was talking about our Haskell sketchers that we do. This is from our last meeting last month. So these are some sketches that we did from that Chris led. So we sketched these from a photo, and we do them pretty quick. It's only about 30 or 45 minutes, Chris, not very long. And so
yeah, if I ever stop talking and start sketching, we'd have more time. You know how that goes.
Yeah, well, we're at work, so we can only take an hour, And these are a few I love. I got started. I won the AI or the architectural record cocktail napkins sketch contest. Sorry, I can't talk. In 2012, where I won the overall professional category, and so ever since then, I've loved sketching on napkins, and so I have a stack of napkins where I like to do these little sketches on, and this one's even got some watercolor, which you can see it doesn't like the water that much, but again, just more little sketches, and then these are of an actual building, and then the kind of the fantasy sketches, and they're really messy, but they're fun. If you've ever drawn on a napkin, I recommend it. It's a lot of fun. You got to be really careful. You got to be really light and delicate because it tears and it daubs and it globs, but it's fun, so there's that. And again, I've got obviously lots and lots of sketches, but I'm just gonna show a couple more and then we'll get into our actual drawing, or I'll talk about my pens a little bit if you want. These two are again on the accordion, Japanese accordion moleskin. This one was a trip I took to Washington D.C. With my daughter's 6th grade class several years ago. And so this was kind of a triptych, like narrative triptych kind of a recording of all the places we went. So starting here, apologize, starting in Oklahoma City, and then all the way through to Williamsburg, and then Arlington Cemetery, and more Arlington Cemetery, Mount Vernon. And so, as the kids were doing their thing, and my kids are 6th graders, they just wanted to go to the gift shop everywhere. I was sitting over there sketching and just trying to avoid being with 86th graders. There's the White House, and then apologies, look out. This is tough to do. It continues on the back. So again, more Philadelphia. We came back through Philadelphia, Independence Hall, and then this is returned from the other side. This is the U.S. Capitol. Some of the monuments, Jefferson, Lincoln. You know where this is at. So anyway, that's that. So it's in this nice book. Just I can go back and look at this anytime. This was from 2000 and remember what was it? 2008. So it's a long time ago. And then this one was from the very first Urban Sketchers symposium that they had in Portland. in 2010. And kind of same thing. It's just, this is kind of a collection, and it's a collection of the drawings. This one was really special to me. The very first sketch out of the box, first day, like 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, we're sitting there, and I went out with the group doing the urban perspective sketches, and I was there with the man, the myth, the legend, Francis Ching from Form, Space, and Order, architectural graphics. I mean, the guy's like a lifelong idol. I mean, I've read Form, Space, and Order cover to cover so many times, and it was like the Bible when we were in school. And then I get to meet Frank Ching, and I go out the first day, I had to sketch with him standing over my shoulder, watching me sketch. It's like intimidating. It's like having Michael Jordan watch you shoot free throws, you know? It's like, oh my gosh. But I got to meet the man. He signed I had a first edition of Form, Space, and Order. He signed it. It was cool. I kind of fanboyed a little bit. But so this is my sketches from Portland, and again, just all the places we went. We had awesome seminars and awesome speakers. And Portland's a great city. Lots to see, lots to do. And then again, this was from, I think, 2010, so it's been a little while. And then the other side is more of the same stuff. Just this big long skyline sketch. The great drawbridge. They got these great bridges over the river there. And I don't do people, I do architectural people. So I've seen some of you guys' sketches of people. They're amazing. My people look like this. They're for scale, really. Only that's my only interest in people when it comes to sketching. Again, the bridge in one of their big silos across the river. So, and more of the skyline with the bridge. It's just kind of panoramic, you know, looking across the river. So there's that.
Geoff, question.
Uh-huh.
For one of these panoramic spreads, as you're just showing us now,
Uh-huh.
you just sit down in place and you just sort of sketch it left to right, right to left. How do you approach a wide subject like this?
On this one, I didn't really start out knowing I was going to do it that way. I started with this sketch, you know, this is the first page, and I did the 2-page spread, and then I flipped it to this one, and I was like, well, I'm just going to do the whole week in this book and just kind of continue it. So I just kind of went from left to right like a book. And then when I got to the bigger ones, you know, I stretched them out, like the skyline ones again. I was like, well, shoot, I've got this wide paper, so, you know. And so I kind of went left to right, and then, you know, just flipped over the back. So each one of these was an individual sitting, you know, like this one was an individual sitting, and, you know, but, you know, it was done over a course of, what was it, 3 days or 4 days? I don't remember. And I had other sketches, but they were more like notes from some of the lectures and stuff. But the sketches when we went out and did stuff out in the city, I did all in this book. So this was that. So, and they ranged anywhere from, you know, I mean, like this one is, you know, maybe 10 minutes, you know, up to the, you know, the skyline one, you know, that probably took me an hour and a half or 2 hours, you know. And that's one thing people always ask. I'm sure that all you guys get it too, is how long did that take? And I'm like, man, I really don't know. I don't time myself. I just kind of sit down and draw. And when I'm done, I'm done. And sometimes it's really fast. Sometimes it's not. Again, it depends on where I'm at, who I'm with, how much time I have, you know. So I always kind of think I disappoint people because I'm like, I really don't know. I don't really sit down and just put a timer on it. But for the most part, I work pretty quick. I think, you know, probably 20 or 30 minutes is about the limit. And then unless it's something really big and detailed, otherwise I think I kind of lose interest and get impatient. So, any other questions about, I went through a bunch of stuff fast. And I know it's kind of hard to see with the camera at this angle, but anybody have any questions about anything or technique, ideas, you know, why?
Show us some of your ponies there, Geoff.
All right, we can do that. We'll go into that. Yeah, so these are just I just grabbed a few of my favorites. They're all my favorites, so it's tough. But so again, the pens I started collecting when I was in college, and these are Lamy. They're called the Lammy Lady, and it's just obviously a series. There was three of them, and it took me a while to hunt down all three of these. They're kind of hard to find. They're fairly rare, but these are a hand painted porcelain bodies, and then they do have a 14 karat gold nib. The nib is like, these nibs are like butter. These are amazing. There's obviously there's multiple different metals they make nibs out of. You get your steel and your iridium and titanium, and the gold ones are very good. If you want to spend a little more money and get a fountain pen with the gold nib, I recommend it. They're very soft, they're very responsive, get a lot of line quality out of them. But anyway, this is my set of the Lammy Ladies, and this was the first one I bought. I bought it probably 25 years ago, in Macy's in New York, of all places, in the jewelry department. And then I hunted these two down over the years on the internet. eBay is my best friend sometimes, and so there's those three guys. I love them. I don't really use these much. I use all of my pens, but some I really don't. I don't use a lot just because they're kind of, they're kind of more exotic, I guess. And this one is a Parker Duofold, and as my last name is Parker, I had to get a couple of Parker. I'm not super fond of Parker pens actually, but I do have a few. But this one is special to me. My mom and dad bought me this pen when I passed my license exam, when I got my architectural license. So they bought this for me as a gift, and so this one is really special. It's fairly expensive, not super expensive, but $400 or $500 range. And it's funny when you tell people that don't know anything about pens, you tell them you spend, even if you say you spend $50 on a pen, they kind of look at you like you're insane. And you're like, well, it's like, it's like anything. My uncle fishes, he's a bass fisherman, and he does tournaments and stuff, and he spends, thousands of dollars on rods and lures, and, and I think it's crazy, but he doesn't, because it's what he does. And he loves the tools. He loves he loves the pieces of it. And so that's the same thing with pens. It's kind of like anything. You can spend money if you want to. This is another Parker I got. I actually picked this up at an estate sale. It's a 1920. I don't have very many vintage pens, but this is one of them. It's 1929, I think, Parker Duofold. And it was frozen, and I sent it to a guy, and he refurbished it, put a new bladder in it. It's got the push button filler, kind of old, very old school. Nib is in good shape. And this one, it actually writes really well. I mean, it's a almost 100-year-old pen. And again, he refurbished it, put a new bladder in it, because the bladder in it was trash, and the button wouldn't push. But I paid a little bit and got it refurbished, and got basically a brand new 100-year-old pen. And I love that one. This one is an Omas, which is an Italian brand. I love this one because I love yellow. Yellow is one of my favorite colors, but I love this one because the stand, the clip, you get the old like kickstand clip. So I love that. And
Very cool.
I don't know if you can tell, it's got this, it's kind of a rubberized body, so it's real easy to grip. That's not slick. It's got this really cool texture to it. And let's see a couple other ones. This one is a little oddball. These are made by forgive me, Moon Man pens. You can see the shape of, compared to like this Parker, compared to like a regular pen, you can see it's a fat, short, stubby. I've got a bunch of different colors of this one. They make it in different colors. It's almost impossible to use unless you post it, because it's so short. So you almost have to post it, and it doesn't post super well. It's just kind of tension. So again, not real usable, but intriguing, cool looking, neat.
I'm glad you opened it up for us. I thought there was a cigar in there.
No, those are in the other room. I got those in another room.
Yeah.
We can talk stogies too if you want.
Yeah.
I'm a man of many obsessions. So I got a couple more here. So this one I like to talk about. So this is this Lemmy Safari. Nothing magical about that. But this one, the blue and yellow, was only made for a company in Sweden. They only made a handful. Like literally a handful of them. And I've only ever seen one for sale twice. And about 15 or 20 years ago, I saw one come up on eBay and I started bidding on it. And I chickened out at like $800. And it sold and I didn't get it. And I was kicking myself. And I was like, okay, if another one ever comes up for sale, it will be mine. And so this one came up for sale a few years later and I have it. So you can kind of fill in the gaps there with what happened. But it's one of my white whales. This is the Lamy 2000 in the stainless steel. The Lamy 2000 is the only pen in MoMA. So it's a very famous design. Very sleek. You can see very sleek. Kind of has this hooded nib. It's an internal filler, piston filler. So the piston's inside the pen is part of it. So you unscrew it and screw it down. And we can talk, I can bore you all day long with fillings mechanisms and different types of things like that. But I just wanted to show a few of these, kind of some of my favorites. And then there's two other ones. So here, this is for Chris. This is the Mont Blanc Meisterstück 149, which is a big pen, as you can see, almost cigar-like. But these are kind of the pen a lot of people talk about. Of course, Mont Blanc, everybody knows Mont Blanc, but the 149, people that really kind of like pens, this one's kind of one of the ones that you just have to mention. You just have to say 149. People know what you're talking about. But this thing is great. Again, 14. It's not 14 karat. I think it is 14 karat nib. It's very soft, buttery, beautiful nib. Right slate, just it's amazing. So that's one of my wife bought me this recently, so that's one of my favorites also. And then the last two are some handmade pens by, again, as you kind of geek out and get into pens and go down the rabbit hole, you find all kinds of things. This is made by a guy he's out of, I think he lives in Kentucky. And he makes hand-turned wood pens. And he saw me post on opening day one year. I had my Cubs jersey on, and he messaged me because we talked a little bit about his pens because I bought one when I was on a trip somewhere. But anyway, he messaged me and he was like, "Hey, I make these Wrigley Field pens where the wood, the body is made out of the old bleacher seats from Wrigley Field, so they still have the green paint on them." He's like, "Do you want me to make you one? You can pick the style, and I'll make you one." And so I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean, here's my checkbook." And so yeah, I picked the cap style and everything, and he made this for me. So this is really cool. So this, as a Cubs fan, this is cool. I can give you guys later. I can post the link to his website if you want. And then this one is the one I was going to draw with this one tonight. This one is made by, again, a handmade pen by a guy. His company is named Relic Pens, but I don't know if you can see. It says SR71 Blackbird. And then the little finial here was a piece of titanium out of the nose of an SR71 Blackbird pen, and then the body is this acrylic, and it's got a nice Bach nib on it, and it has a cartridge or a converter filler. But this, and again, the company named Relic Pens. He makes some really cool stuff. He does a lot of Army, he does some stuff, pens made from pieces of, Monticello and, old Army. I've got one that's got a Civil War button on it. And so, it's cool stuff. So anyway, that's the one that's the one I was going to draw with tonight. So it's nice, and it's really light. But it's got a great nib on it. This is a fine nib, but you can see, that you can get some pretty good line variation out of it. So there's that one. So yeah, that's one of those are a dozen or so of my 300 and something fountain pens that I have.
I have two questions.
Yes.
First of all, which pen do you say you think you use the most, and what do you determines which pen you're going to use when you go to do a sketch?
Oh man, I try to rotate through them a little bit. I usually put ink in one and I use it until it's out, whether I put a cartridge in it or I fill a converter. And so I'll kind of use it till it runs out, and which is, maybe a couple of days, maybe a week. depending on what all I'm doing. And so I really don't have any rhyme or reason to it. When I travel, I do usually grab one of the safaris because again, they're durable, they're reliable, they're not super expensive. If I lose it, I'm not gonna, cry for a week. And so I usually take one of them when I'm traveling because of those reasons. So, but other than that, I mean, I do have a few. I have a handful that are just awful. I mean, I bought them because they look cool. Well, like this one is an example. It looks cool. But I can't really draw with this. I can't write with it. It's just, but it looks cool. So I have a lot. I have some of them that are like that I just don't really use because they're just, and when some of them have, I mean, I bought again some of them, and you get them, and the nibs are just horrible. They're scratchy, and they skip, and But I buy purely. Not purely, but probably 90% of what I buy is based on aesthetics. If I like the way it looks, I don't really care what brand it is. I don't really care how expensive it is. I don't care what anybody says. If I like the way it looks, I buy it. I'm an architect. I'm visual. If it's pretty, I like it.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Again, we can talk pens all night, but we can draw.
I have a question, Jeff.
Yes.
I see that you're left-handed. I'm also left-handed. Do you
Oh,
ever
yeah.
buy left-handed nibs?
I don't. I did buy one left-handed nib in a Mont Blanc one time because I never had one. And they're have you ever used one?
No.
It's so they're, if you can see, if this will focus, but a regular nib doesn't have a chisel to it. They're straight across. The left-handed nibs have a chisel to them, and I couldn't write with it. And they're really, I think they're designed for lefties who write backhanded, this number.
Yeah.
Which I don't. I don't write that way. So I think if you were a lefty and you wrote backhanded, I think they would work. But I bought it and I brought it home and I used it for a few days and I just I can't use this thing. It's just scratching and skipping and so I took it back and they swapped me for just a regular nib. So I've never bought any of the other left-handed nibs.
I never felt the need to either, but I know they exist, so I was wondering about that.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of like there's also the calligraphy nibs out there, that are the chiseled nibs and I had a couple of those and I can't use them. I usually swap them, like the Lamy, these Lamy Joys. They come with a calligraphy nib on them, but again, I can't use them. So I have 5 or 6 of these and I buy them and I just swap them out with a regular fine nib because I can't use the calligraphy nib. So.
What about the food aid nib?
I haven't tried one yet. So Chris and he let me test drive his when I was down in Jacksonville, and it's the first time I'd ever used one. I've seen people's sketches with it. I know Merrick does a lot of sketches with them. I had not tried one until I tried his. It's really cool. I'm definitely going to get one and experiment with it. But that's as far as I've gotten with it. It's on my list of next things to purchase with about 20 other things.
Well,
But they're very cool.
Yeah, Merrick changed my life, Geoff, when he introduced
Yeah.
me to the food aid nib. I mean, he's the master, so he's the
Yeah.
food aid dude. So
yeah, I mean, I do love the idea of being able to put down that thick line.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it reminds me of a Sharpie, but it's got it's got the ability to do thinner lines. Where it's like with a Sharpie, you're stuck with a fat line, or with a broad nib fountain pen, you're kind of stuck with a broad line. But that one, I think it's really cool how you can get the variation line, and it puts down some serious ink. It's pretty cool.
You said
That's-
something
that's
when
the-
you were in Jacksonville, Geoff, that those pens reminded you of a more painterly pen, and you're absolutely right. I mean, that's why I like them. They're just the diversity of line, and they're more painterly. So you don't have a real fine line. It's just sort of real exuberant style. That's why I particularly like it. Anyway.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And that was the phrase I used, and it does it because it reminds me more of a painting stroke. And
Yeah.
obviously, I think I've said this before, is like Chris is a painter, and several of you guys I've seen that are painter. I'm not a painter. I'm a pen and ink line drawing guy who throws color on things and kind of like colors in the, like paint by numbers kind of is my the depth of my skill. I do enough to be kind of dangerous with it, but there are a lot of people that really are painters, and that's a different thing because when you're drawing, like I'm gonna do tonight, line drawings, you're drawing edges
Mhm.
and shadows and when you're painting, you're articulating surface, and it's different. It's a different approach. It's a different way of looking at things. Um, it's more based on light and reflection than line drawing is, whereas line drawing is more again about edges and faces and hard edges, hard lines and shadows. So it's a cool thing when you see somebody that can really paint, and it's again, I think it's a little bit different. They're wired a little bit differently.
I just want a clarification from Chris. When Chris said that I changed his life, that was for the better, right?
Of course.
The jury's still out, Merrick.
No, you should have seen us. We were like, I was sitting there in Chris's office that day, and we were like a couple little kids, man, because I brought a bunch of stuff, and then he had a bunch of stuff. And I mean, we were like a couple little kids on Christmas morning, man. And he got that Fude nib out, and I started playing with it. And I was like, oh, man, I'm going to take this thing home with me. So, yeah. And I had my Mont Blanc 149, and he was trying to steal that one from me. So,
Oh, yeah. Well, Merrick gave me this pilot pen, and it's pretty cool as well. And it's I cherish this one only because it was in his hands, at one time.
Did he leave some mojo on it? Did he?
Well, I can't find it. If you left it on there, I can't find it.
That's the trick. You got to leave the juju on it, the mojo, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, any other questions about anything I showed or talked about, or?
Geoff,
Awesome.
I have one thing, Geoff. When you were showing the napkin drawings that you do, it reminded me, because it's about the same size as you can buy a bunch of blank coasters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they're about the same size, but they're a little more durable than napkins. But but I got a stack of circular ones and then also some square ones, which are really fun to draw on.
That's awesome. See, I've seen those, in restaurants, and I've doodled on a few of them. Of course, they always have their logo and stuff on, but I've never thought about getting any blank ones. That would be a fun, that'd be a fun like little series to do a series of them, and I try to sell some stuff every now and then. Those would be cool to do, like maybe and put them in kind of a floating frame or maybe even a shadow box, and do a series of, those would be cool. So I'll have to check that out.
100%.
Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts? If not, we'll dive into the main course. If that's all right. You guys ready to sketch?
Go for it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is I'm gonna have to keep it up here once I start sketching. So I hope you guys have the reference photo handy where you can see it, because I don't think I can get it and my sketch on the screen together. But this is the our subject sketch. Sorry, my dog's barking outside. So this is in Shawnee, Oklahoma, which is about 20 miles east of Oklahoma City. Town probably about 70,000 people. There's a couple of small Christian colleges there. So kind of, small town, just a, it's a 20, 30 miles east of Oklahoma City. But this is the Shawnee Mills mill, and they make everything. They make pancake mix, gravy, anything that you can pretty much make in a mix, they make. And so this is, again, one of these things that I've talked about a little bit earlier, these facilities, industrial, agricultural facilities that I just think they're fascinating. And they have the scale that's amazing. Again, if I don't know if you guys have ever been to Oklahoma, but it's like a lot of places kind of in this part of the country, it's fairly flat. You know, you get outside of the city and it's pretty much just flat. There's not a lot of trees. It's the plains. But then, you know, you get into these little towns and there's these things, you know, this thing is, you know, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 stories tall, you know, I mean, it sticks out. You see it on the highway, you see it from the highway. And so they kind of have this like cathedral-like presence about them. They kind of sitting out there on the prairie. And, you know, then you get up to this thing and you look at it and it's got all these, you know, chutes and bends and hoppers and towers and guy wires. And, you know, it just has all this intriguing uh, layering of masses and things. And you know, again, I just find them fascinating. And the materiality, it's just getting so simple. You know, metal, corrugated metal, you know, concrete, steel. You know, nothing. You know, no flashy zinc panels or anything. You know, like that. And so uh, this is the photograph. I wish I had a different photo of this. I apologize. The day I took this, it was obviously cloudy. This is the north side of the building, so there's not a lot of light, but I think it actually may help a little bit and using it as a reference sketch because it kind of is a little monochromatic. So it kind of takes some of the takes some of the color out of it and makes it maybe a little easier to kind of mentally edit things. But so you know, this is the sketch I wanted to do. Chris had mentioned, you know, doing something that was kind of near and dear to my heart, and something that's probably maybe a little different for most people. Obviously not different for me, but different for a lot of people. And so, yeah, this is what I picked. And I drew a couple of lines on here. You know, one of the things when I start a sketch, I do a handful of things and I don't even think about these things anymore. They're kind of second nature to me. So when you go through a deal like this where you talk about it, it's more, you know, it's like I have to articulate, well, what is it I do when I sit down? And, you know, I sit down, one of the first things I do is like, you know, try to understand the perspective. Perspective is very important when you're doing urban sketching. And so I try to understand the perspective. Is it kind of a 1 point? Is it a 2 point? 99% of the time on the ground. So my eye level and the horizon line is always way down at the bottom of the drawing. Just again, a little perspective 101, your eye level, your eye line is the horizon line, no matter where you're at. If you're in an airplane at 27,000 feet and you look out the window, your eye is on the horizon. If you're sitting on a curb and you're looking out, your eye is the horizon. And all things vanish to the horizon line. So that a little quick perspective 101. So this is really more or less a 1 point perspective. And you can see, so I kind of drew some construction or some leading construction lines here, kind of on some of the main massing over to where everything kind of vanishes at this 1 point here on the left, kind of the left side. And then that is your eye line. And so I usually draw me a horizon line, and that kind of helps me set my sketch on the page. Let me grab my book here. I'm just going to do the sketch in my actual sketchbook, if that's okay. All right. So I hope everybody has their reference photo where they can see it, because I can't get both of them on the screen at the same time. But all right. And again, as I'm doing this, I'm going to try to kind of walk through verbally what it is I'm doing visually. And if you guys have questions, holler, stop, ask away. This is not, again, this is for fun. So I have my page here. Again, horizon line down toward the bottom of the page. I'm going to go ahead and give myself just a quick reference, the horizon line. And I'm going to just start. I'm going to kind of block everything out first. I'd like to kind of give myself kind of an overall massing composition. So I'm going to kind of start over here on this right side with these. I'm going to kind of start over here on the right side with like these barrels here that are kind of in the foreground, and kind of use them to kind of set everything. And then I'm going to kind of work my way left with the massing. So again, you know, it's kind of important to try to proportionally understand, you know, how much paper you have to work with. So, you know, we don't want to draw those barrels, you know, this tall and this wide, because we're going to get over to here and we're going to be in the middle, you know, we're going to run out of paper. So you kind of have to do some mental gymnastics of trying to get the scale and proportion right, and it just takes some practice. I still screw up sometimes. I'll start sketching and I get to the edge and I'm like, oh man, I need another 3 inches of paper, and I run out of room. But so here's these two barrels, and they're sitting on this stand. Kind of block that out, and then kind of looking for the point where the roof behind that pops out is kind of a little more toward the top portion of that, and it comes over at a little bit of an angle, not quite flat. Goes over this way, and then we have our corner, and then the roof comes up like this. Okay, got that. And then we have this piece here, this line here. This is kind of our main vertical line. It's kind of going to establish the kind of the center of the drawing. So we're gonna, and when I'm doing this, I like to, when I'm kind of initially blocking it out, I like to hold my pen down up toward the top. I guess this is the top. Yeah. A little bit loose. You know, I don't want to strangle it. You know, not white. I don't want to white knuckle it. I'm going to kind of let it, and it helps you stay a little looser. I like to stay loose when you're doing this. You start getting too tight, and you know, for me, things start to kind of come apart. So I like to stay kind of loose. So I like gripping my pen down like this, where I can kind of let it wiggle, let the mistake happen if it needs to a little bit. And again, the architect-y squiggle line is very ingrained in me. I can't not draw that way, but it helps you actually draw straight lines when you're trying to draw straight lines. It almost helps if they're crooked to make them straight, if that makes sense. So there's that kind of comes down here. And then what I want to get in there, I want to get that little bridge in there. And if you look, that comes pretty much off of this line, this back edge of this kind of tall tower there. And it's up at about this level. So we kind of place that in there. It's over to about here. And then it crashes into this other tower. And it is taller than this one. And then we've got a really sharp angle of that perspective. And again, if you were to follow these lines, I'll kind of, we'll get our horizon line in there in a second. Cover beyond. It's got this little hat on it. And then there's some stuff that happens on beyond it that I'm just kind of look in there. And so our bridge, the lake comes down behind it. And so again, our vanishing point is you know, over here somewhere. I said that there's the horizon line. And I'm just going to go to my vanishing point. I'm going to just draw me a dot. I'm just going to lightly sketch in some lines from that to kind of help me get a sense for where the ground is. It's always good. I had a professor tell me one time, it's like, you know, when you're doing a drawing, it's like you always got to ground your building. It's got to sit on the ground. It can't float. So that's kind of the skeleton of it. And now I'm going to come back and I'm just going to start adding a little detail and working some of the bigger pieces. So over here on this main tower, we've got the kind of like I said, that main kind of center vertical line where that mast kind of comes all the way up. the center, and it kind of lives right there on the corner of this guy, and it comes down all the way to this roof here. So I'm just gonna kind of start blocking that in. And this is, for me, this is the piece that I love, is that there's so much detail here. You can't, for this sketch, you can get lost in here. It's kind of like doing, if you're doing, if you're drawing a Notre Dame or something, you can get lost in the detail of the filigree. You don't have time to draw all this. So we're gonna kind of represent these things, these posts and these masts, but I'm not gonna get bogged down in the counting the number of them and making sure I've got all the angles right. And it's more about, let's get some ideas on there that represent it close enough. So there's that kind of main mast. There's come down here on this face of this, there's a little platform sitting up there, and it has a pipe that comes up and kind of does this. So that kind of helps establish that. And then kind of from behind it comes up this other mast that's the next tallest one. So it kind of that, and it's got this little hat on it with the kind of round thing, and it's got these great little brackets between these two skinny posts. And then over here on this side, there's again another kind of big pipe that kind of comes out and it comes down, and it kind of is that it kind of comes down here and disappears behind. It kind of comes down here and disappears behind these guys. Those tapered bends. I'm gonna draw those in there. So there's two, and these two over here. How we doing? Everybody still with me?
Yeah, we're good, man.
Yes.
Okay. Holler if you got questions, or I need to stop so you can. Actually, I'm not going to stop, but I'll answer questions.
I have a question while you draw.
Yeah, fire away.
When do you stop? Or when do you know how to stop?
Well,
what's the process there?
Do you mean with the overall drawing, or like
Yeah, with the overall
detail?
drawing. Like you mentioned, you only had like an hour with Chris or something, so you were time limited then, right? But
Yeah.
if you're sketching, let's say you're sketching in front of that, and you have a longer amount of time, what makes you stop? What makes you decide that that's it, I'm done?
I don't have a hard and fast rule about it. For me, it's kind of an experience thing from having done it for a long time. And there's a fine line for me with my sketching and the way I do stuff. There's a really fine line between it being done and it being overdone. And I always tend to lean towards overdoing it. So I have to force myself to stop when I get to a point where I'm like, okay, this is really done. And it is tempting to keep going back and kind of I add one more layer, a little darker shadow. But when I do that anyway, 9 times out of 10, it gets really muddy and it starts getting overworked pretty fast. So I don't have a good formula for telling somebody else how to know when you're done. I just kind of know. It's like, okay, that's the amount of detail I have. And again, sometimes it does have to do with time. Sometimes it's like, I'm out of time, I got to go. And there's a lot of times where I will sketch something on location and I will start it and get it to like maybe this point and I have to leave. And sometimes I have to you can sketch it later in the hotel room or later the next day, or I don't always get to finish. But I like to, at least if I'm in that situation, get enough down on paper that I can go back and finish it from a photograph if I need to. Again, I always try to like to draw on location as much as I can, but sometimes you just can't. And you're with other people, and there's other restraints. But so, you know, as we kind of get to the end of this, I'll get to a point and I'll stop, and I guess we can kind of evaluate whether or not it's a good stopping point.
Thanks, Geoff.
Yeah, sure. I wish there was a formula where you could tell somebody like, you know, well then, yeah, this is how you know, but you know, as with anything art and things, it's a little bit subjective. It's a little bit, again, there's, you know, it's like, well, how do I know when, you know, how do I know this or that? And like, well, you have to do it a lot.
I do have a question
Get a feel.
about,
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to ask the question, you know, I'm looking at an 8 by 10 or whatever it is, and my sketchbook is a bit smaller. So for me to try to figure out how to proportion the shapes appropriately, I just kind of looked for the center and then tried to eyeball, well, half of this and half of that. And the reason why I think I feel like I need to do that is because I will run out of paper if I think, oh, proportionally, this should be this big. But if your drawing surface is smaller, then, because I noticed last time Chris started kind of from the top and then kind of worked down and then went back up again. But it's interesting, you kind of went from right to left. So if you don't get one shape down appropriately and everything else is based on the one shape, then what do you do?
Well, that's when that's where, again, it takes a lot of practice and experience. You kind of have to get a good feel for, you know, again, proportioning and page composition. But what I always tell people, a lot of people will they'll dissuade you from doing this, but I did it a lot. I still do it sometimes, is I'll block a little bit of it out in pencil first. Just to get, again, you know, if I've got, especially if you're working with a different size page that you're not really used to, or it's really small or something, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with going in and kind of doing a quick block. I wouldn't go much past what I did before I started adding detail here with the pencil, but you know, go in there and strike yourself some key, some datums. You know, this is okay. This is the center of the sketch. This is the tall point. You know, everything from that side goes this way. You know, whatever that is proportionally, and you know, give yourself, you know, a few dozen lines on the page that are kind of your reference point, your kind of your grid, and then you can kind of draw over the top of that. And what I find a lot of times when I do that, even in pencil, when I come back with the pen and ink and do it, I tend to ignore a lot of the pencil lines anyway, and kind of the sketch kind of grows organically. But I don't think there's anything wrong with a lot of people. Again, they kind of feel like, no, just go straight with the pen. I agree. Like at some point, it's fun just to kind of jump in and let the mayhem begin. But if you're having trouble with that, at least starting out, I definitely recommend just, you know, block it out a little bit in pencil first. And then again, if you get something and then you get it drawn and you realize, oh man, I've really crowded this side and I've run out of space, you know, just redraw it a little bit smaller.
Thank you. That's great. That's great advice.
I do think it's funny how there's a lot of people that you know, kind of they get a little bit dogmatic about some stuff sometimes, like it, and not to throw darts at any of the urban sketching people, but there's some of the urban sketchers that, again, really, I've gotten like scolded before for posting something that I drew from a photograph, and I'm like, you know, whatever. I mean, you know, I drew a building that was demolished 30 years ago, and that's what I wanted to draw. And to me, it's still an urban sketch just because I didn't do it on site. It's like, you know, kind of like, I'm not going to get into like drawing doctrine with somebody. But like, to me, it's like, if you're drawing, it's all good, man. You know, I don't give a crap if you sat there in person or if you did it from a photograph or you did it off your TV. You do it on your dang iPad. I don't care. If you're drawing, you're looking, you're seeing, that's the point.
The urban sketchers had to backpedal when COVID hit because go out. So all of a sudden everybody's drawn from photos, you know, and the very thing that they've scolded me on this as well, you know, like, did you do this in situ? You know, and I go, I don't know. You mean, did I sit down?
Yeah, exactly. I'm alive. Yeah. and the argument is, and again, I taught, and the argument is, well, obviously the photograph is doing a lot of the work for you, right? I mean, the photograph, you're sitting there, you take the photograph, right? The photograph already flattens it. It makes the three-dimensional two-dimensional. So it's doing a lot of some of the mental gymnastics for you. It gives you angles and perspectives rather than space, right? So I get it. It in some ways it's a little bit like, oh, it's kind of doing some of the work for you. But at the end of the day, you got to put the lines on the paper and you got to make it look right. And unless you're tracing it, like literally tracing it, that's still difficult to do, whether you're drawing from a photograph or drawing from real life. And I'll challenge anybody to that debate. You still got to execute the drawing. You still have to do it. So just because the photograph is quote unquote doing some of the work for you, I don't buy that. I mean, I buy it to a point, but at the end of the day, you still got to put the lines on paper. You still got to do the sketch and the drawing and make it look right. So that's my 2 cents for whatever it's worth. So, all right. So that's it's a little messy, but yeah, some of the main guts. I'm gonna come in here on this top. These guys, I'm gonna start putting in a little more detail. Somebody have a question? Thought I heard something. So I've got all my towers, 1, 2, 3. I've got these guys. So got a pretty good layout. I'm going to come in and just start adding a little more detail up here with all these shoots. Come up with this thing. I love this pen. This is so great. I love this thing. It's so smooth.
That's your Blackbird pen, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that means you have to draw fast.
That's right. You got to go speed of sound. So what do you guys think as this for subject matter? Is this something I mean, again, at the end of the day, it's all there. It's all shapes and geometry, whether it's a church, it's a museum, it's a house, but what do you guys think about the subject matter? Is it intriguing? Is it
real
I
cool?
love it.
Are you one thing I would hope, I think some of the people in the Jacksonville office said that when I was there, they were like, man, I look at those things in a totally different way now. I was like, that's the point. If nothing else, if you take that out of it, I'm happy. If you can say, hey, I will never look at one of those things, one of those big ugly things like that. I'll never look at it the same ever again. But then Geoff had a successful time with you guys tonight.
So this reminds me of when Merrick was here in Jacksonville and we sat and drew the Maxwell House coffee plant.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very.
Yeah. It's just, again, there's so much beauty in some of those things that, again, you don't really look at, it's not a flashy piece of, quote unquote architecture, and again, I'm an architect, so I can smash stuff like that if I want to. It's like some of these big architects and their egos and whatever.
Geoff, one thing I always found when you're drawing these, what I call urban uglies, when you are drawing things that are already good looking, it's hard to make them look better. But if you draw something that's ugly and you do a sketch, you number one made everybody more aware of it. And then number two, you made it look better in a sketch.
I agree. Yeah, I agree completely. And again, a lot of that is, what's going to come out of this. It's like my sketch is going to be different than the photo, right? But there's my interpretation of it, my progress. And so yeah, it's right. It's like, how can I take this thing and I can make it look better than it does, maybe. Yeah, it's kind of hard to draw like, get Notre Dame and make it not look good, right? It's kind of hard to screw that up. I mean, it can be done, but so now I'm just gonna I'm coming back and just adding a little detail. I'm gonna kind of darken in some of these openings and windows. I'm gonna go ahead and draw in just quickly some of the materiality, like some of the vertical metal panel, just to give these surfaces some texture. So that's vertical panel. This is vertical panel. I'm just gonna draw right over my windows.
Just one more question. Is that permanent ink?
Yes, it is. I put the good question. Yeah, thanks for saying that. I put this Noodler's black ink in, which is waterproof. So I love this stuff because you can go hit it with watercolor afterwards and it doesn't bleed. Most of the fountain pen ink is water soluble, so you have to be really careful if you come back with any kind of water color or even try to do anything over the top of it, it will bleed. So I like this Noodler stuff if I usually use it just in case. I don't always come back with color. Like I said, I'm not really as a skilled painter, but sometimes I do come back and I mean, you guys saw some of my stuff, so I do some watercolor on top of it. But I always try to make sure if I think I'm going to use this ink. There are some cool things you can do with the water soluble inks, though. They make you pressing like the little water pens or water brushes, the little paintbrush, watercolor brush that you fill with water, and you can actually take those and come over the top of a drawing you did with the water soluble ink and kind of hit it, and you can get this really cool like ink wash. It kind of takes the ink and it kind of not smears, kind of washes it, and it's really cool. You got to be really careful with it. It can get away from you really fast, and it can start getting really muddy. But it used sparingly, it can be really cool. You can do some really cool, get some really cool shade and shadow, um, and kind of gives the sketch a little bit of a different feel, just away from just the pure line work. Like I said, I'm a kind of a line work guy. I love just doing pen and ink line work. And just kind of what I like. Again, I was always fascinated growing up. If any of you are familiar with Mad magazines, uh, yeah, because Jack Davis and Mort Drucker were my two favorites, and those guys both just their drawing. They did these just amazing caricature cartoon drawings and stuff, but they had this just incredible pen and ink drawing style, and they used cross hatching, and I just was always amazed by the way that they could make an arm look round with just cross hatching. It's fascinating to me. I still look back at those drawings. I still have a lot of those books, magazines, and I still look back at them every now and then and just kind of marvel at the skill. So this is some lines in here. I kind of always trying to be mindful of the perspective. You can get a little wonky with your lines, and this one there's not too much perspective. It's really just this one side here that kind of everything vanishes. The rest of this is almost really like in pure elevation, which is kind of makes it a little easier. There's some there are some boxes on the ground over here in front of these. I really didn't get these tall enough. See, I'm going to come back and I really didn't get those tall enough in my initial layout. They stick up above that a little further. So, proportion is still, it's always just proportion and perspective. Proportion and perspective are the two things that, are always kind of remain, they seem to kind of remain elusive sometimes, even after doing this for a long time. What other thoughts or questions do you guys have about anything? Nothing?
You're doing
Quiet.
good, man.
Quiet group. If everybody's focused, right? Like, what the heck am I got myself into?
Yeah, really. I'm
Again,
I
thinking,
know,
you
Pat,
don't want to hear my thoughts right now.
try not to get lost in the detail. And again,
Well,
there are so many details in this drawing, or in this.
yeah, I think I've gotten a little OCD with it.
Yeah, so you have to try to. Sorry, I'm trying to adjust my camera a little bit here. Yeah, try not to get too.
Too late.
Again, it's like loosen up, like loosen up, shake your hand, stretch.
I can tell you, Jeff, Patrick, and Wes are just loving the detail, man.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
They're counting the pipes.
That's what
Every one of them.
they count the fight. So
Every bloody one.
I'm a little bummed out because the camera is kind of making my perspective. My perspective is really not bad. It's pretty good. It's obliquing a little bit here, so it's kind of making it look a little wonky, but I did a better job than that, I think. So, all right. So there is that for me anyway. I'm at the point now. You're asking about how do you know when you're done. This is the point where I'm like, I'm kind of done drawing. I'm kind of done drawing stuff. There's again some of this building in the background here. Now, there's one other thing I do want to put in here that I think is it works, it makes the composition really, really happy. Picture. These awesome light poles, man. Look at these guys marching along.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And there's one here. It kind of gets lost. It gets lost in the mass of the mast of the building there, but I'm going to get those guys in there because I think they really kind of, again, reinforce the depth and the perspective and just kind of come here off of our vanishing point. Sorry, I lost my word. And, the first one is kind of here and it's behind the bridge. And then the second one is fairly close to it. So he's a little bit taller. And the third one is kind of almost here in the middle. So come up to here. And it's in front of the bridge. And then there is the fourth one. And it is about here. So its top is going to be here. And then this one, again, it gets lost. I'm going to go ahead and draw at least the base. Because what I want to get is this action.
Yeah, you have to draw that front pole because that's where the birds are.
Right. And you get it pulls you into the perspective. I think quite nice. Yeah. So sorry, my bookmark's in the way. So what do you think?
It's awesome.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there something in the photograph, in the picture in here, that you decided right away that you knew that you will not be including in the scene?
That's a good question. I think the main thing is just is some of the, again, trying not to get too lost in the detail of this, and it's more about you kind of having to abstract it and represent it. And then I think for me, it's the stuff here kind of in the background. I think because most of this is really here foreground. So I think the stuff here kind of along the background and the other side, and then this stuff here on the front. I kind of drew over to about here. But for me, this is the meat and potatoes, right? And compositionally, like this thing is the cool part. So this less important, the background less important. Yeah.
Thanks.
That answer your question?
Sure did. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm gonna do again, I apologize for my choice of time of day when I photographed this building, but because there are no shades and there is no shadow really. And like I said, this actually is the north side of the building, so it's always in shade. But one of the things that makes drawings takes them from being a good drawing to a great drawing, or a good sketch to a great sketch is shade and shadow. You got to have some shade and shadow. You got to have tone and value. Line work is one thing, but for me, the kind of the last piece is always doing the shade and shadow. You got to get that on there so you get the depth. It helps the pieces pop. You can kind of make pieces pop that you want to. You can kind of make other things diminish a little bit by not doing as much detail and shade and shadow on them. So I'm gonna use just a little bit of kind of intuition and experience, and we're gonna kind of pretend that the sun is coming from kind of this way, but that the faces that are facing us, and then this one, so this face, and this face are going to be in shade. So we're going to do the sun coming from this way. So this would be getting sunlight. This little sliver would be getting sunlight. This piece would be getting sunlight. And so then we're going to have our shadows go down and to the right on the surface that's not in shade. And I'm even going to draw some shadows on this side and the shade side, even though they're not really there, but it's mostly just because, again, just kind of to get the depth and kind of, I'm going to kind of black out some of this again, where you can't really see, all of the detail in there, but the black and the shadow will help define some of those kind of edges where that stuff gets muddy and runs together. So I'm going to go in here and draw actual materials. So again, all the faces that are this face in the perspective are going to get shade. And so this is I gotta find my corner. There's my corner. So, and I'm just going to do that with I like just doing it's quick. I like doing just a kind of a 45-degree line. Try to keep the spacing fairly regular. But not get too bogged down. I'm not going to get my triangle out or my parallel bar. The page is bouncing on me. One of the things that was brought up, I think it was when I was in Jacksonville down there at Haskell, somebody asked me about my sketchbook size. This is it's bigger than 8x10. It's or 8x11. It's like 8.75 by 11.25 or so. It's I can't remember if it's the A5. I can't remember the size, but I like this size because it's fairly big. And when you're out sketching and drawing, because it's a little bit bigger, it's kind of easy to sit in your lap, and you're not, when you have those little sketchbooks like these guys, or even the littler ones like the little pocket ones, they're kind of hard to hold. You kind of gotta curl up in a, kind of, they're a little unwieldy. And so I like the bigger sketchbook because it kind of sits, you can sit it on your leg, you can sit it, if you get lucky enough to sit at a table or something, it's less of a deal. But I like these bigger sketchbooks. And then, of course, you don't always have to use all the page, just because you've got this whole page, you don't have to use the whole page. You can still do small sketches in it if you want. But I like the bigger sketchbook for those reasons. And again, if I do want to do something like this, where it's a bigger spread and I've got more detail, I've got room to do it, and I don't have to really shrink it down. Because if you got a little bitty sketchbook, and you're doing a sketch with a lot of detail, you either have to not put a lot of detail in it, or you have to have a really fine pen or something. Again, you got to edit. The size of the sketch is going to dictate kind of how much detail you can get in there. Yeah, if you've got like your tech pens out with like your 000, whatever, you probably you see the deals where they write the Declaration of Independence on the back of a penny or whatever, or a peanut shell or whatever. It can be done. Okay, so I've got these surfaces shaded. This surface here will be shaded. And I just love I don't know if you guys can hear it. I love the sound. Again, if you can hear the pen. Can you hear it? It's something kind of therapeutic. My professor that got me started on my sketching. I don't know if you guys, Merrick may know. You know Mohammed Bouaisi?
Sure, we are on his
Yeah.
Facebook.
So Mo is the guy. He's my guy. He's my mentor. He's the one that. And I just love Mo. I still talk to him quite a bit. And but when I
He
do
just
stuff,
retired, right? He retired
yes, he
recently.
did. Him and Suzanne retired. They moved to Washington, D.C. Yeah. Yeah. But Mo, when I'm doing things like this, I can still hear him and in his very Mo voice, with his awesome accent. He's like, Geoff, you have to work hard, damn it. You have to work hard. Do you want to be a champion? Yes, I want to be a champion. Then you have to work hard, damn it.
He has a wonderful personality.
Oh, he's the best. He can hold a room in his hand. He's so engaging. And again, he makes it look so dang easy. Oh man, it is amazing to watch that guy draw. All right, so I've got this side shaded. I'm gonna go ahead and put a little bit of texture on this building that kind of goes away in the background. That white was kind of bugging me. So now we're gonna do we're gonna cast our shadows. So again, if the sun is coming from this way, so just everything can go down and to the right. So this is going to cast a shadow on the bridge. It's a little bit in front of it, and so I'm going to kind of give myself a reference line. I'm just going to do almost black, pretty tight. And there's just a sliver of the underside of this bridge that I'm going to hit. Give it a little bit of a bottom. And then our bridge it would cast a shadow on this guy. And this kind of come down, we're going to fudge the angle. Forgot to shade this side. My bridge. And then this tower would be casting a shadow here on the ground. very kind of oblique. You're not gonna see much of it. Now for the fun part. We're gonna come in here and we're gonna start trying to get some depth and excitement going up here in this. My page keeps trying to wobble on me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and in between all my line, not all of my lines, but in between a lot of these lines, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna crochet out with the solid black some of this negative space, the kind of the in-between space between some of these shoots. And what that does is it allows the my video is really crappy right now. I don't know if it is on y'all's end, but what it allows to happen is when you darken in you darken in some of these in between spaces. The other than the objects, the shoots and things kind of pop a little bit. It's kind of the same idea. If you saw on a lot of my sketches where I had the let me go back and show what I'm talking about. So one of the reasons I like to do, like in these, for instance, one of the reasons I like to do the sky, and I like yellow, so I know the sky's not yellow, but it's more of an abstraction. But one of the reasons I like to do this kind of block sky behind a lot of times is it allows you to get the transparency that you can see that this is a pipe, and you can see where I'm pointing. This is a pipe, and then the in between is the sky. Without the color, without the tone or value or color, it just looks like lines, and it might be a solid, it might be a void. But with doing that, you can get some of this transparency, and that's also what doing some of this black in some of these areas here is it helps stuff pop and recede, and gives it a little bit more. It makes it feel. You get that feel of those little pieces of transparency that in the drawing, or I'm sorry, the photo. You see these little pieces, these little slivers of sky, that poke through. Even back here where this is really dense, there's little pieces of sky that pop through. So that's the idea with doing that.
Hey, Geoff, just a quick time check. It's about 9:45 here Eastern. I know you're on Central, but
oh yeah, my bad.
We wanted to leave a little bit of time to where we can show some things as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Have a little virtual throwdown.
Absolutely.
Or throw up in some cases.
I hope not. I hope not. Well, yeah, whenever you are ready, I mean, if you guys want to take over the screen and have people start holding stuff up here in a couple of minutes, or give everybody a 2-minute warning.
Yeah, let's do another couple of minute warning. Let's put the finishing touches.
Okay, yeah.
I'm going to start adding color here in a minute if I keep going.
Yeah, I didn't anticipate doing color on this one just because we want to just kind of talk about how I build my sketches and kind of go that piece of the focus. So, but
I love it.
You could obviously come back and throw color on this, and it would look great. Try some of these brackets in here on this thing. I'm trying to quickly give these barrels a little bit of, try to make them look a little bit like a cylinder. quick.
You know, I love the hatching, Jeff, when I was in college, you know, obviously repeatiographs were what we used mostly. You know, it's like drawing with a needle. We used to just cross hatch for hours and hours and hours, you know, stuff that Wes and Patrick do these days. But since I've gotten older, my patience has gotten shorter. So I look at how quickly I can fill a void with the broadest tip or the biggest brush.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember doing the in like, you know, early, you know, graphics 1 or whatever it was, doing the deal where they made us do stipple.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I mean, you walked in the room and it sounded like 80 woodpeckers, you know, just you know, just for hours, you know.
All right, everyone. I think we have to start closing this down. So we do need to let's show some work here. Hannah, would you do that? Spotlight some people and some work.
Yes. Who is ready? I can go on the spotlight. Okay, Jamie.
I'm excited to see what
I see Jamie first. So.
what everybody's got.
Oh,
Hey,
nice.
Nice,
Nice.
Jamie.
Yeah, they get that's the proportions and stuff are great on that. That's really good. That's nice.
Really nice. Very nice.
Mhm.
Thank you.
What else? Let's go with Wes.
Oh, of course.
God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Hey, look at that.
You
man.
start this on Monday? Wow.
Whoa.
Is that
Wow.
did you use is that marker?
I use Sharpies. Yeah.
Okay.
I know
Yeah.
that fountain pens are a lot more sustainable and earth friendly, but I
Hey.
still go with the plastic pens.
You know, you know, you got to do what you got to do.
work.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd frame that. Yeah.
Who else? Jess, Aston Hall. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Nice.
Hey, very
Uh-huh.
nice.
Very nice.
I like the clouds.
Yeah, I like the sky. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Again, it gives it that transparency through there that you know. Yeah.
Very nice.
And that's water soluble, right, Jess?
Mm.
Ah,
You are muted, Jess. Here. Okay. You are muted, but who else is ready? Scott. Okay, let's go with Scott.
oh,
All
nice.
right. That's great,
Wow.
Scott.
Oh yeah, nice.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
I don't know how you fit all that on that tiny little paper.
See, you guys rose to the occasion, man.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Scott.
Nobody was intimidated by the the different subject matter. I'm impressed.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
practice on the
Yeah,
top.
so far.
I'm unmuted now, real quick. I was saying I was using the hybrid Technica 04, and I forgot it was water soluble, and that's why I liked it.
Nice.
I started to use a Tombow marker for shading and then add water, and I was like, oh, this is all bleeding. Okay.
See, that's the thing is it looks really good. It can get away from you, but
Yeah.
if you're careful with it, it's awesome.
Thank you.
Phyllis.
All right, Phyllis.
Hey.
Yeah.
I only did
Love
part
it.
of it because I was
Alright.
overwhelmed. So I just did a little.
Hey, that's
Very
the beautiful
nice.
thing. You can
That's
put it.
awesome.
You can do whatever you want. You're the artist. You know, you can edit whatever you want.
Yep.
Very good. Patrick.
Oh,
yeah.
look at the
Wow,
spread.
yeah.
Very nice.
Oh, nice.
Great
yeah.
work.
Looks like a whole city.
This was with a Takikawa. The first time I've used this solid brass dip pen.
That's a dip one. Yeah, a dip pen.
Oh, wow.
Talk about
Very
wide
nice.
line.
That's outstanding.
Hey.
Who else?
All right, Lisa.
All right, you ready for
I-
me?
Yes.
Can you see it? Even?
Oh, I
Oh,
love
look at
it.
Nice, Lisa.
Very nice.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really great.
I like how you popped the edges there with the little bit heavier line in a few spots. That really that's a nice touch.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Nice,
Thank you.
Lisa.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Okay, who else? Heather. This one, yeah.
Ooh,
Oh, yeah.
cool.
There you go. Very nice.
All that on that little bitty sheet.
Nice graphic line.
Very
So
nice.
nice.
Very nice. Okay, Merrick. Okay.
There you go,
Oh.
here, this way.
All right.
Uh-huh.
All right, Merrick.
Well,
Okay.
hey, I added some birds, but they were flying through, you know?
Yeah,
So,
love the birds.
believe
Gives
me,
it
they
scale.
were there.
Always
Gives it scale.
Is that the food nib? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
Of course.
it's yeah, it's always always a food. I go for the, you know, and that's here you go. You can see it here. Yeah,
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, frame that sucker up, man.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's great for disposing of any ink that you don't want in your house.
It puts out the ink, no doubt. No doubt.
Oh my
Okay. Who else?
Love it.
And I'm going to show mine in the meantime.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Nice.
my goodness.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice, Hannah.
That's
Very
wonderful.
great.
Hey, and it's you took the challenge of drawing across the seam, so I like that. It's always tricky.
Yeah.
It is.
If someone else wants to show their sketch, please let me know.
Sure,
Chris,
I'm
Okay,
going to
would
show
you-
you mine.
I'll go with
Oh.
Connie and then
Connie,
Oh, yeah.
that came out great.
Wow.
Very nice.
Got nice energy. Yeah.
What a skyline.
Mhm, mhm.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Non-architect.
Oh. All right, here you go.
There we go, Chris.
There we go. Nice.
Oh,
All
wow.
right,
go.
Chris.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'm looking out a window.
Wait, is that the picture? Is that the photo?
I
Yeah.
used the Copic gray marker, the 3 tones. You know, the
Yeah.
grays. Those are quick too. So
Uh-huh.
that filled in a lot of seemingly detail, but it was good. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
very good.
Beautiful.
Really, really good. Can we take a picture, group picture?
Yes.
Yeah, everybody
Can I
hold them
show
up
you
for a
mine
picture.
too? Can you see mine? I don't know if you can see mine. There it is.
Learn.
Yes.
Yes.
Wait a minute. Okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Thank you. And
Nice.
let me spotlight Lorelei because I didn't. Okay,
Sorry about the lighting.
very nice.
That's
I love
awesome.
It's very Valentine's.
Yeah, see, it's a little pink
Yeah.
hues. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like moody lighting here.
Great drawing.
Fantastic. Man, this has been fun, guys. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Yes. We
Thank you.
really.
Very
Geoff,
good.
this is awesome. I tell you, I really appreciate, from my perspective, really appreciate you taking the time, and thank you from my side for sure.
Oh,
And
Thank
we
you.
got to do this again. And obviously, Jacksonville's, the doors are open for anybody to come visit and go on a sketch crawl with us. And Geoff, we'll get you back here. We'll find an excuse to get you on a project or something, and get you back to Jack's.
Yeah,
But thank you so much.
Thank
Love
you,
your
Jeff, for
work.
challenging us
Very
today.
good.
thank you. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
having me, and I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. You guys, I think that did you have my link to my stuff, Facebook and Instagram, if you want?
I found your Instagram on the Facebook link. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I found
Yeah.
it.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, feel free to, comment and peruse and ask questions and share. I like, again, this is a great group, man. You guys
Oh,
are,
yeah.
it's an OKC Urban Sketchers group, but it is not nearly And again, I will admit I don't really participate, but it's not nearly as active, and the participation is not nearly what you guys have. So maybe I need to get in there and try to shake things up and see if we can drag some more people in. But yeah, you guys, congrats, man! It's a great group. It's a lot of fun. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
Yeah,
you.
come back,
Thank you.
come back for the next one. Hang out with us.
Sure, I will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I look forward to it. And like I said, please reach out if you have any questions. If you want to talk pins, or whatever, I'm always up for some good discussion.
All right. Good.
Outstanding, guys.
Excellent.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Thank
What a
Right.
great
Good
Valentine's.
night.
Thank you.
Happy
Good night.
Valentine's
Good
Day.
night, everyone.
Happy Valentine's
Happy
Day.
Valentine's Day.
Everybody
Bye.
take care.